I'm Shweta. I'm Principal Product Manager in Dynamics 365 SCM and Commerce, based out of India, Hyderabad. So that's a brief about me, and I'll let Mohit introduce himself quickly. He's the speaker for today.
Hey everyone, my name is Mohit. I'm a senior PM at Microsoft in the D365 project operations team. I own time entry and team member experiences, and I'll be taking the session today. Looking forward to it.
Yep. Thanks, Mohit. And I think we all know this is a little bit of ceremony. We have to walk through this Doug meetup slides. So I'm hoping all of you folks already know what is Doug meetup, but yeah, let's quickly cover it. If anybody doesn't know what is Doug meetup, please raise your hand. Then we'll go a little slow. Otherwise, we'll quickly cover it. Okay, so I think this is a community which has been founded in 1995 and it has 47,000 community members. India is a very new member, I would say. We just got started around on this a couple of months back. And this is our third session on this. And we are looking forward to actually have this active community and grow within India and as well as other regions. Like we are trying to keep these sessions at a time which is friendly with APAC and Europe zone as well, so that we can maximum folks can utilize these sessions and see if they can attend it. Okay, so these are like just different type of meetups, like at regional level, and everybody, customer, Microsoft partners, ISVs, they can attend. It's purely for like education, learning, creating more awareness about the product. And these are, I think, all the different type of forums they run. I'll not go much into details because I think everybody is aware about that. And this is their, I would say, the flagship event, the DynamicsCon, which happens every year in May. So I'm hoping, like, is anybody of you going to this event?
Maybe.
Okay, great. Okay, and there is call for sessions. If you're going, this is something which you might have to look into that. And there are a lot of regionals which they plan. So they have already announced these regionals for the next year. 2026, and we are hoping like we'll be able to announce this regional for India as well as we grow this community. So hoping to see this India name soon on this chat. So that's a brief about Doug, I think. I hope it gives some idea to everybody, and I think we can get started. I'll hand it over to you, Mohit. We can take it forward from there.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shweta. I'll share my screen and we'll get into it. All right, just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen.
Yep.
Awesome. So before we get into it, we'll be talking a little bit about the time and approval agents, why we really why these agents are valuable, and how they are actually like impacting the experience for teams today. I'll show you a demo of these experiences as well. And we will then look at a few experience improvements on the time entry side, being a calendar interface and a new mobile app. And I will need to switch screens at some point. So I will be unsharing and resharing, just a heads up. So to start off, I want to start by just giving an overview of the time entry overhead for team members or consultants. And from there, we'll go into the deeper issue of like delayed invoicing. So to start off, everything we've been doing as a team over, say, the last year and a half had initially been focused around minimizing the time entry overhead for consultants or team members. And if you look at this overhead, you have to think of, these are consultants who are working in relatively high pressure jobs for clients across multiple projects. And on top of all of this work and a busy schedule, they're also expected to consistently log time entries or timesheets every week. And if you actually look at that process, it involves the user initiating this in the middle of the week by creating the time entries. But traditionally, this has been completely manual and typically relies on forms and drop downs, all of that. So the experience is tedious, which makes it time consuming. So the creation of time entries and adding of comments is completely manual and tedious, which adds to it being seen as an overhead. Now, let's say they create it and they actually go ahead and like submit this for approval. They also now need to keep track of, have any of my entries been rejected? Do I need to make corrections? If I do, then what are those corrections? And throughout all of this, they typically get a bunch of reminders from their managers close to the end of the week. Uh, and all of this just adds to the perceived workload in their organization. So if you look at this problem, it is the starting point of all delays downstream. And this was the space where we initially thought of trying to streamline the experience in terms of UI interventions which we could do uh, to make it easier to complete this task, right? Or to make it feel like less of an overhead. So this is what we had been doing so far. Now, going forward, we've started looking at this as a broader problem, right? We've started looking at the overall flow of how do you go from completing work for a client to actually invoicing them quickly, right? And the time you spent in between is what we're trying to optimize for or minimize. And this is something that's tracked as a metric called day sales outstanding, which is basically the number of days it takes you to go from completing work to getting paid for that work. Then if you look at the steps in between, we have a time entry creation and submission. Once that's done, you need to go through the approval mechanism. And once that's done, you need to initiate invoicing and get done with that process. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the time entries are where we kind of start the downstream delays, right? Any delay at this stage is going to go into approvals and is going to further delay invoicing. So two things that we've done more recently is roll out the time agent and the approvals agent. And the objective here is to minimize delays at both of these stages so that we can impact your DSO overall. So what does the time agent do at a high level? It basically triggers the time entry creation for the consultant. So it's no longer user triggered, it's being done by the agent. It goes ahead and looks at your staffing information and creates those time entries for you. So you don't need to manually go and create those entries. And we also have some optional Teams reminders to kind of nudge them to review this and submit it downstream for approvals. Now, on the approval side, what does the approvals agent do? Well, at the end of a week, when an approvals queue is full of time entries that have just been submitted, the approvals agent actually goes over those entries based on a policy that you can set as an organization. And over the weekend or overnight, the approvals agent is going to review your entire queue for you. So as an approver, I can now log in on Monday, and rather than look at an entire queue of time entries that need to be reviewed one by one, I have a high level idea of which entries are actually ready to be approved and which entries need just some more review from my side and why they need that review. This is at a very high level. I'll take you through this in more detail and show you the experience inside an environment as well. So the first part of it, which was the time entry creation and submission, how we tried to tackle this was we started with a copilot in time entry. So a copilot was a simple chat experience at the time where you could just say something like log my time, and a copilot would go and look at your assignments and suggest some time entries to be created. You could say, yes, I want to create them. This was the first kind of version of this experience, but this was still being triggered by the user. The user still needed to come to chat and say, I want to log my time. So we went one step further and we took the initiation of this process and gave it to the time entry agent now. And we also made it more robust in terms of knowing what you've been working on and helping you turn that into time entries. So now, rather than the copilot in time entry, we have a time entry agent which has been in public preview since April. We ran a small, a limited preview with some customers for 3 or 4 months before that. And what the time entry agent does now is a lot more refined because it looks at multiple sources of information. It takes into consideration the preferences of a user and then goes ahead and initiates that process on a particular day of the week so that users can review and submit them at their own convenience anytime in the week. So a little bit more information about this agent. Before you can actually start using it, there is a short setup process, and this involves an administrator going through, firstly a feature flag, secondly enabling certain actions or power automate flows, which this agent uses as the skills to go and create these time entries, and finally you need to publish this agent inside Copilot Studio. There is an optional step where you can also create a Teams. You can also publish a Teams experience so that the agent can notify the user in Teams. This is completely optional. It can be skipped as well. And the last step is where a user can set their own preferences for the agent, for which sources it should go look for, and whether it should use, whether it should use your Outlook calendar to go and improve the comments being added to the time entries. And if you look at a week for a user who is actually using the agent, it would look something like this, where they get to decide the day of the week when the agent should go and create these entries. So let's say it's Monday, for the sake of simplicity. So on Monday, when they log into the system in the morning, they would see that the agent has already gone ahead, looked at their assignments and bookings, and created the time entries on that basis. Now, there's also a scenario where consultants sometimes need to add a note or description about what they've been working on. We call these external comments if they're customer facing. Now, the user can decide if they want the agent to also go ahead and populate these external comments. The agent can do this in two ways. There is a simple flow where the agent just creates a very generic a comment talking about the project and task and how many hours it worked on. And there is another flow where you can say that I want the agent to look at all my Outlook meetings, pick the ones that are relevant to the projects I've been working on, and then populate that on my time entries. So if you've chosen the simple flow, the agent will go and create those notes on Monday itself. If not, it won't do this on Monday because you've not had your meetings for the week. So now the rest of your week as a user, you get time to review these time entries, make changes to the duration because maybe you worked a few more hours than you were supposed to. And you can then choose to submit the entries at that point itself. Or if you've chosen for the agent to use your Outlook calendar, you can wait for Friday when the agent lets all your meetings wrap up and uses the relevant information to populate your external comments, after which you could choose to submit those time entries. So this is how the agent behaves today, the time entry agent. Now, moving to the approvals agent. Again, there is a similar...
Mohit, do you want to take a pause and see if anybody has any questions?
Yeah, sure.
I have a question. You said it was you could do it per week, create time entries for entire week. We are supposed to create our time entries for every day. Will that be possible in time? Is that on the roadmap?
So the way the agent actually behaves is if you pick, say, Monday as the day when the agent should populate time entries, on Monday, it'll go ahead and create all the entries from Monday to Friday. So it's not running every single day. It's running once a week, but it's populating your time entries for each day. Is your question whether the agent
so
can
it's
run
populating going forward and not going backward?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Going forward. So you can think of it like I log in on Monday and my time entries are pre-populated because my staffing is already set. Right? I know which projects and tasks I'm going to work on, and there is a plan for how many hours I'm supposed to work on the projects.
So I need to be good with my calendar. That means on the week.
Yeah, I mean, the way this works best is if your assignments are done proactively and they're actually done in a way that reflect a little bit of the reality of your week.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
In case there's already one event created by that agent based on a calendar entry, and then next day the user changes this Outlook calendar entry, maybe to another day, or it has been cancelled or whatever, is this agent then getting this information as well and delete his entry into the
Right.
time entry here?
Yeah, so there's multiple parts here. One is the Outlook calendar part, which you mentioned. So in the scenario where you say that I want the agent to use my Outlook calendar, it's only going to wait till it's going to wait till the end of your week. So it's going to let all your meetings complete on Friday, and is then going to go through your Outlook calendar to pick the relevant information to populate those comments, right? So we have chosen for it to run at the end of the week to avoid the scenario that you just mentioned, where maybe there are changes happening in the middle of the week, right? So
I see.
yeah, so that's one. There is another scenario where maybe the team member had already created some time entries by themselves, right? Or maybe they create some entries for Monday, half of their day, and then the agent, goes ahead and populates some more time entries. So in that scenario, the agent is very aware of what the user has already done. So it'll make sure to not kind of duplicate that information or not override that information. It'll only add net new information on top of that. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Awesome. So I guess I'll move to the approvals agent then. So now the next step of this process is the approvals agent. Again, has a similar setup. It's a lot simpler. You need to, as an administrator, go in. You need to go and enable a trigger flow so that the agent knows when to kind of wake up and review some entries. You need to enable a feature flag and then similarly publish the agent in Copilot Studio. Now there is an additional step here where, as an organization, you get control to decide how this agent is going to behave. So you get to populate a policy document where you write down in pure English or like natural language what the criteria for saying that an entry is good for approval, or if an entry needs to be flagged for a human to look at it. So you get to write down a list of criteria, and you can keep updating the criteria as and when you need to. And the agent is going to use that for every time entry that comes in to the approvals queue. Once that's done, the way the agent will behave is, let's say all of your users have been great and have submitted all their time at the end of the week on Friday. Now, rather than you waking up on Monday to a long queue of records that you need to go through one by one, you now have a queue that's already been reviewed by the agent over the weekend or overnight, and you now know which time entries are violating a particular policy and which time entries are actually all good, and you can simply go ahead and approve them. And if something is violating a policy, you can also see which policies it is violating or why it's been flagged, right? So now your life becomes a lot simpler as an approver, especially towards, say, like a month end where you have extremely large load of approvals, and you could just choose to go ahead and review only the ones that have been flagged, right? Rather than do all of it from scratch. And I'll show you this now in the environment as well. But before I go there, if you have any questions, I can take them, or you could even ask me questions while I'm showing you the demo.
So I have one question, Mohit, like generic, I think, as I'm watching this, right? Like this approval agents is only for time, right? Not for expense.
So it is actually for expense and material usage as well. So it's time, expense, and material usage. Yeah. I'm just using the example of time to kind of to keep it simple.
That helps.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'll share my screen and take you to an environment. Right. So now if you see my screen, what you're looking at is the time entry grid. And what you'll notice is there are a bunch of time entries that have a sparkle icon next to them. So these have actually been created by the agent. So this would have been me just opening my time entry grid and seeing that the agent has already gone ahead and created my entries. Now I no longer start with that empty grid where I need to start from scratch and open a form and create some entries. I now have all my time entries linked to the projects and tasks which I've been staffed on here for me to review. And you can also see this little icon on the top right. This indicates that the agent has gone ahead and populated a comment for the entry as well. Uh, this is a fairly generic comment based on details like the project, the task I've been working on, and how long I've been working on it. Because I've chosen my preferences in a way where I've not chosen Outlook calendar. I just want the simple comments. So you can see the preferences also here. So if I go to this section to set my agent preferences, I get to first say, do I even want to use the agent? I can say, no, I don't want to use the agent. I've chosen to use it. Now, to oppose that, I get to choose which sources the agent should look at to create my time entries. So I've chosen my task assignments. And then I've said that if I don't have any task assignments, you can just use my previous week's entries and just populate that again. You also have an option to pick your capacity booked on projects. So if your organization just staffs at a project level and doesn't use tasks, you are covered in that way as well. So this is what I've said. I've said that I want to populate my external comments. I've said no to Outlook calendar, and I've picked a time zone. This is not exactly irrelevant if you're not enabling the team's experience, but this is when the agent knows to notify you that it's gone and created those entries. Right? And you'll see that there's this one entry that doesn't have a sparkle icon. This was one that I created manually. And if you look at the hours it's created, I was staffed for 2 hours a day on this particular task for a client workshop. Because I created 1 hour myself, the agent has gone and just added 1 extra hour instead of going and adding 2 more hours to make sure that my total is as per my staffing. So this is what the time agent experience looks like. I have the option to just go ahead and populate to modify these entries. The moment I do that, you'll see the sparkle going away. And I can then say that I want to submit these 2 entries for approval. Now, what would be interesting is to look at the approver's experience from here. So typically the approver would be someone else, but for the sake of simplicity, I have set myself as the approver for this project. And this is what my grid looks like today, where I have a bunch of records that I would need to go through in detail before I can make a decision on whether to approve them or whether they need some corrections to be made. Now, luckily for me, the approvals agent has already gone through this queue. And the agent has done its own kind of review based on my policy. So before we go and look at what the approvals agent has done, I'd like to show you that policy document and the experience for an admin to set this up as well. So we have this new space called time and expense agent, where you get to set certain configurations around the agent. One of them is for the time entry agent, where you get to say which day of the week you want this to run for the users in your org. It's been set to Thursday. That's why you saw the agent has already populated those entries for me. Now, for the approvals agent, you'll see a section here called rules, where I can go ahead and upload 3 different documents. So like Shweta asked earlier, this approvals agent works for time, expense, and material usage. So you can upload a different policy document for each type of transaction. For now, I only have one for time entries. Now, there's also 2 modes in which the approvals agent runs. There is one, which is the default mode called classify. And there's another one called classify and auto approve. And the difference is that classify is just helping me kind of sort these approvals into, is this ready for approval or does this need to be flagged for your review? And classify and auto approve is just going to go ahead and auto approve everything that's ready for approval. So we recommend sticking to classify as the default. And what this policy document looks like is something like this. I'll share my screen and show you a sample document. Is the document visible to everyone? Awesome. Yeah. So if you see the document, it has a little bit of background about what is the purpose of this document, a little bit of information about what does the agent need to do as an approver or the role of an approver, and then a little bit of information about, hey, you need to classify these records as needs review or being ready for approval based on a certain criteria. And then you get to set the criteria in pure English, where you get to write down every single point that you as an approver would typically look at, but you now want the agent to do this on your behalf. So there are policies around revenue being zero, or budgets exceeding, or time being submitted on a holiday or a non-working day, and you can keep adding to this list. You also get to set certain exceptions, but I'd like to focus on the criteria for now. So this is just to give you an idea of what does a policy document even look like, and what is the agent referring to when it's reviewing each of the records. So I'm going to switch back to the environment now. Are there any questions around this policy itself before I switch away from it?
Actually, I have a question, Mohit. So have you tried yourself adding additional criteria here, or because these are just standard from the standard document? Have you yourself tried adding additional criteria, and has it worked for you?
Yeah, we have. So you can even add a criteria around a particular day of the week, a particular custom field that you have. We have a documentation about how you can extend this to add your own custom tables also to be used by the agent. So there's a whole bunch of fields that the agent has access to. Maybe I can show you right now.
I think I've seen this list, but absolutely, maybe you can show it.
Right. So within the documentation, we have listed down which fields the approvals agent has access to out of the box, and which ones. Right. It's a very large number of fields, so you can use any of these to kind of add more policies.
I think we have some, Mohit, we have some disturbance. Okay, I think it's gone now.
Yeah, I think someone had a question, so it was from there. And we also have a section where you can customize the data that the approvals agent is going to use. This is being done by modifying a Power Automate flow. But the idea is that it actually gives you a lot of control in terms of what kind of policies or the criteria you want to set up. Soren, you had the question?
Yes, I'm quite new to this, but I need to understand, is this set up solution-wide or project-specific?
Yeah, so currently this is organization unit-wide, but we are working on kind of giving you the ability to have a different policy for each project, or choosing to only use the approvals agent on certain projects. If you don't want it to apply to every project, you can say that I just want it to be used on these 10 projects.
Okay, but as it is now, it's for all projects.
Yes. Okay. Currently it is.
Yeah, Mahit, why did you say it's organization unit-wide? Is it system-wide or organization unit-wide?
Organization unit-wide.
Why? Why? Where do you define this? Where do you define the organization unit?
Oh, basically the way you have your parameters here, right? So let me show you this. This is what I mean by that. So you have a set of parameters where you can go and enable the features.
That's what a lot of people believe. There is just one parameter record for all of project operations.
Then I guess you can say this is for the entire the system-wide.
I mean, maybe somebody else can confirm from here, but I mean, there's just one parameter record. You don't create multiple parameter records in project operations based on what I understand. I mean, maybe someone can correct me.
You're right. It's only one. Yeah.
So this is system-wide. This is system-wide, and I understand on the roadmap you want to make it project specific. Right? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thanks.
Awesome. Right. So if we had to look at what the output from the approvals agent is like, we would come to this section called the approvals agent. And when I refresh this, I should also see the 2 entries that I submitted just today. So these 2 entries on 15th and 16th of December. So you can see that apart from the standard information that my approvals queue had previously, this also gives me two new fields. One where it's telling me the status or how it's classified this record. So a few entries have been marked as ready for approval because they don't violate any policies. And a few of them have been flagged as needing review. So I can double click into one of these which need review, and you can look at the history that talks about which policies have been kind of violated here. So you can use that as a reference to decide if this needs to be rejected, or maybe you're okay with that policy, you can still approve it. Alternatively, let's say there's been a change to some information in your system, like maybe the policy was that revenue came up to be 0, but you recently updated your pricing. You can simply say, I want to reassign this record to the agent. And when you do that, the agent is going to go back and look at it with the fresh information, and then it might tag it as being ready for approval. And now, as an approver, when I look at a queue like this, obviously this is a very small queue, it just has 7 records. But if I had a few hundred records, and let's say 70% of them were flagged as being ready for approval, I could simply have picked all of the ones which are ready for approval and said that I'm just going to go ahead and approve all of them, right? And that's what my day would look like compared to another world where I don't use this agent and I go through all of those records one by one. So that's how the approvals agent can really simplify things for an approver, especially during times of to a large approval load. Right? Any questions so far before I switch back to the presentation?
I actually have a question. So, Mohit, how long does it take for the agents to go through, for example, 100 new time entries?
Yeah. So typically it takes about a minute per record, but you can speed this up to be closer to 10 seconds per record. That's the speed at which it goes at this point. And the thinking here is that if you have your approvals in your queue at the end of a week, over a weekend, a typical organization with a few thousand users could also complete all of their approvals by the end of that weekend.
Yeah, so I understand. So it works very well if you have a defined process where people are supposed to submit a time entry by a certain time, and then it does it overnight. So it works very well overnight, but it doesn't work very well in real time because as you say, it's 1 minute per record. If you have 5,000 users well, it basically doesn't work very well in real time.
That's right. I mean, it depends on how you want to use this as an approver. So let's say you're an approver and you've landed up with, say, 1,000 records on a Wednesday, right? And they're all coming in real time. If you have a day to kind of let the approval, the approvals agent to sort through the records, you can do that and save yourself the time of actively doing it and adding chances of an error because you're doing it manually. Go do something else in that time, as a project manager, or you could probably let it do its thing and take up another part of the queue. I guess it depends on how you want to handle it.
Yeah. But I mean, depends on. So this relies on users doing their job. If, for example, I work for the PMO and 10 of my people haven't done their timesheets, ask them, do your timesheets, and suddenly I get 500 new time entries. Then it would take a couple of hours for the agent to go through them.
That's right. As of today, that's how it would work. But like I mentioned, you can even today, drop that time down from like 1 record a minute to 6 records a minute.
Yeah. And how do you do it? How can you do it? How can you reduce it?
In the same trigger which you enable, right, the flow or the Power Automate flow, there is a metric which you can just increase to number of records you wanted to look at per minute. So you can make it 5 from 1.
Okay.
That's how you can do it. But on the other hand, this is just the limit that we have today. This is bound to come, down and get faster every few months. So it's just a matter of time before this becomes as useful in real time as it is overnight.
Understood.
Yeah. Awesome. So that covers the agents. I just want to take you through 2 more aspects of time entries. These are more around improving the experience and adding more ways of logging time in the system today. So to start with, we have continuously gotten this feedback that our users need to add in the start and end time for their time entries, and the time entry grid doesn't really work for that kind of a time tracking mode, because the moment you add information like start and end time, the time entry grid just becomes one record per row, right? And then it's no longer a grid; it's as good as any other read-only view. So to consider this like pattern of time tracking, we've introduced a new calendar interface which is a lot more intuitive when you need to use a start and end time. And apart from just catering to that use case, it's got a lot more usability improvements as well. It's a lot easier to kind of make modifications to time entries, duplicate time entries, summarize your entries across different time horizons. So you can look at a weekly view, a monthly view, a daily view, and you also get a snapshot to give you an idea of how far are you from your target for the week, or how many hours am I supposed to log every day, and how many have I done so far. So this is what the calendar interface is for. I'm going to quickly switch over and show you this experience in an environment as well. Right, so this is what we were looking at so far, the time entry grid. And what the calendar looks like is this. So this is the new time entry calendar interface. Now here we have the same time entries from the grid are now being shown in a calendar interface. Now the grid is typically not used with time, so like start and end time. So what you're seeing here is the start time that's come from your assignments. So now for all your draft entries, you can feel free to modify them in multiple ways. So if I want to change the start and end time of this entry, I can just click and drag this down. If I want to change the duration of this entry, I can just say that I worked for 2 hours instead of 1 hour. If I want to replicate the same entry on Tuesday as well, I can just select the entry, do a Control C, and do a Control V for the next day. If I want to get rid of a time entry, I can just select it and delete it. So the calendar is a lot more intuitive when it comes to manipulating and like modifying information on the grid. I can easily stack things up from rather than them having the same start time, I can modify it to have no overlap. I can modify information inside the entry as well by just double clicking on it and then making a change here. So I could probably change the task into another task and to save it. So this way, the calendar gives you a lot more flexibility in how you want to use this experience. And another thing you can do here, which is unique to just the calendar, is changing your time horizon. So by default, the time entry grid and this calendar, they are a weekly view. But the difference is in the grid, you cannot change from weekly to anything else. But here you can say, have a look at your entire month in one go, choose a particular day and then double click into that day. You can look at just one day if you want to focus on what you got done today, or you can stick to the weekly view and do your thing here. Now, in addition to this, you also have a section here that shows you how far you are from your target for that day. So here you can see that all of my working days have 8 hours as an expectation from me. I've only hit that on one particular day. For the others, I might still need to add some more time entries. So you get this snapshot at a high level, and you get it for every time horizon. Even for a month, you will get the snapshot. Even for a day, you get the snapshot. Right? And yeah, that's what the calendar interface is for. Since this is relatively new, it's been around actually for about 6 months, but it's still relatively new compared to the time entry grid. So if there are any questions around
Mm.
this experience, I'd be happy to take them.
I have one question here, because I mean, I think there is a challenge with this calendar view, is that it doesn't have the same business logic as the grid. So it has its own business logic. So if you let users use two different ways of create time entries, the standard grid and this grid, it just has different business logic, and you cannot change the business logic of the calendar. So you cannot add new custom fields. It only allows you to create time entries based on the dates of assignments. So it has different business logic than the standard time entry. How is Microsoft? Do you know how is Microsoft going to address that? Because this leads to poor quality data.
And when you say business logic, can you give an example of what you're referring to?
So I made one example. So one example is, for example, that when you create a time entry in the standard grid, you can create, if I'm added to the project and I have a task, I can create it at any point in the past, in the future, in the present. But if I'm creating a time entry here, it only allows me to create a time entry within the time frame of the assignment. So it's different business logic, basically.
Yeah. So
and also, if I add another example is if on the time entry I add a mandatory field, a business required field, it is not taken into account here. So two examples.
Perfect. So for the first part, we did update the behavior here. So now you can you're not just limited to picking something in the date range of your assignments. You can see in this case, I'm not assigned to this project. I'm just a team member on this project. I can still pick that project. I can pick a time range outside of my assignments as well, where let's say this is 13th of October, right, where this starts. Let's actually try and go to an older date. Let's go to this week.
Well, a good test would be to go to a different year. Good test would be go to 2017, okay. 2027 perhaps, and see.
Okay. Let's see. I don't know if that's a relevant scenario, but let's try it out anyway. Right, so I can pick one few of these. I can say I've been working for, let's say I've been working for a few hours at a very odd time.
Mm-hmm.
And then
you can save it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can submit this as well. So
this has been changed, right? So this has been changed because in the past it was only within the time frame, right?
That's right. That's right. So in the initial release, it was only in that time frame. We did update that after, to get it in parity with the time entry grid experience. And the second point that you mentioned was about the mandatory fields, right? So let me kind of come back. Which month are we in? December. So for the mandatory fields, so when you look at this form, this is not the exact same form as the quick create form on the time entry grid. There is a different form that you can use to again set, to modify the fields, how it show up here and set those fields as mandatory. I'll drop the name of that form here in chat. I believe it's called create calendar time entry. That's the name of the form. So you can use that form to set any mandatory field. So you might have to do a one-time effort of replicating the same mandatory fields and the set of fields which you have on your quick create form, but you can completely modify it here as well, just like you do on the time entry grid.
So that's new as well, if I understand correctly, because that was not possible in the beginning, I think. So this new form for the for the calendar, yeah.
Yeah, we did do that after the first release. We made that available. Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions? I see your hand up. Yes. Sorry.
Is it correctly understood that you cannot add custom fields to the form, calendar form?
You can, just like you add them to the quick create form. There's just a different name of the form. So you have a quick create form on the time entry grid with the name, I think it's called create new time. To create new time entry. This one is called create calendar time entry. So if you just go and link your custom fields there, you can do the same thing here as well.
Okay.
So I tried doing it not a long time ago, and I didn't see a form there. But I mean, maybe this is something recent. So I haven't seen a form there. I was told that this cannot be done, adding new fields or standard or custom.
Yes, same here.
Yeah, no. So you can modify everything that you see here. the same way that you do in the quick create. You just have to do it on a different form. That's what it is. Awesome. Now, one last relatively new part of the experience. I'll just share my screen once again. Right. So the second, new experience or new way of logging time was the time entry mobile app. So this was long due on the Dataverse side, where we didn't have a mobile experience for consultants who might, be traveling a lot and want on-the-go time tracking. They still needed to open up a laptop or a web app to get this job done. So this is the new time entry app. It's been available since March of this year in public preview. It needs an administrator to share the mobile app with their with the users in the organization. And the Power Apps, a mobile app. So there's an Android and iOS app called Power Apps. That's the one that gets used to log into the time entry app. So there are a few notable capabilities. I think I'd like to show it to you in a video rather than here on these screens. So I'm just going to share that video now. Right, is this new screen visible? Great, okay. So to start off, I'm just going to show you a quick visual of each of the screens. First one is my work, where you get to see which projects you're staffed on. Then you have my time to show you the time entries on each day of the week. Then you have a section called my week, where you get some charts to show you how many hours have been logged. And then finally, you have a timer, which I'll talk more about later. So to start off, my work basically shows a consultant which projects they're staffed on as a team member or they're assigned to on tasks. So on top, you see a project where I'm just a team member, which is why you don't see any task names. I just see the name of the project and how many days it's going to go on for. I think this project is already over, which is why you don't see an end date. Then at the bottom, you see a project where I have multiple tasks. So you can see each task and how many days it's going to go on for. I can use that as information to create the time entry with project and task, the details are pre-populated. Then I have my time, where I get to keep track of all the time entries that have been created for each day of that week. Now from here, I can obviously do a lot of things that you could do on the grid, like I can go and modify the duration of the time entry. I'll say that I work for 4 hours instead of 3 and save it here. I can similarly make an update by saying I want to submit this time entry for approval. So I can simply click the entry and hit that arrow to submit the entry for approval. I should see the status change here as well. I can similarly go and delete an entry, basically make any kind of manipulation to these records that you would do on the time entry grid. Right. And yeah, so you saw the entry got deleted from there. Now coming to the timer, this is a new way of logging time, which we didn't support until now. And this has been requested, especially within the legal services space, where you do have smaller time horizons, which you want to keep track of, like meetings with your client. So you could start a timer and you could, be working for that time period. Now, in this particular video, I've obviously stopped the timer very early, but yeah, so I've stopped it, and the minimum duration that we support is 1 minute, which is why you're seeing that as the duration. And now you can keep recording more, or you could just choose to create one of these, a timer recordings into a time entry and go and fill in your other details like project task and things like that. So just to give you a glimpse of what the mobile app is like, that's what we support today. Right. And that's all I have actually from my side. Thanks a lot for your time so far. I really appreciate it. And if we have any more questions apart from the ones we covered so far, be happy to take them.
So do you guys see this like Lone and Soren, like this use case with your customers or till now? Like how is it?
We are actually going to, where Harald Nagel and I, where we work, we are going to try the time agent in our production system because we as a partner use project operations and timesheets. So we are going to try the time agent.
Okay.
So I might reach out, Mohit, if I get any issues.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And even approvals agent loan.
Yeah. First of all, the time agent. I was talking to someone from Microsoft, and it seems we are using timesheets very much in comparison with other project operations users. So the time agents would be our first try.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And I've tried the approvals agent, and so I've tested the approvals agent, and the tests were positive, and I recommended it to clients. One of the clients has tested it. They haven't decided to use it yet, but yeah, the approvals agent.
Yep.
But only with the standard policies. I haven't tried to. Well, I did try earlier with some custom ones, but first I said no. I'll focus on testing it with the standard policies, and they was positive. But obviously, it would be good to test it more with custom policies too.
Yeah. And just to give you confidence as well, Matthew. I mean, we do have some customers who are who went through this journey of creating policies for themselves for approvals, and it has been loaded and it is working fine for them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you, Niranjan.
I think it will be good. I think Lone and everybody, I think as you like experiment with this, in case you guys hear any feedback or anything, right? I think it's a good idea to share it back with this group. And we can actually obviously evaluate how it can be part of the roadmap and all.
Yes.
Okay, I think we have 4 minutes. We'll take a pause if anybody has any more questions. I hope the session was useful, at least got to learn something new. And let us know in case you have any questions, else we can have 4 minutes back.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Mohit. It was really useful.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your time as well.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Mohit. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thanks.